I think the first thing is you're not going to grow. You'll grow in the beginning at slightly faster rate, but once you've hit stability, it's going to be very difficult for you to grow, especially if you're a large part of the economy. It's going to be difficult for you to grow at a rate which is higher than the economy, right? So the way growth rate expected projected is about 1 to 2% year on year from 22 onwards. So you can use that. You can take a look at the education industry as a whole, but GEM is already very large. It's almost about 40, 45, 50% of the overall education market, school market in UAE, in especially in Dubai. So from that perspective, growing at faster clips is not going to. They can grow possibly outside of the UAE, but that's a separate debate. So that's one part. How do we test it? So look at the assumptions. What are the assumptions? The first assumptions are your discount rate, right? This number and this number. So test against that. How do we? We already know. You go back to your data table. So you go back here to the top and let's make a data table. And in that data table, we're going to say we want to test our IRR / discount rate. And I want to take it all the way from, let's say, 8% to 9% to 15%. Look at how much is GEMS worth under what conditions, right? This is 17%, all right, this is fine. And then from a growth point of view, I want to take it from -2%, -1%, 0% to say about 8%. In fact, let's make it 7%. All right. And then what do I want to check? I want to check enterprise value. I want to check shareholder value. So value to GEM shareholder is 3.275 billion. I have this answer here. So I've got my IRR discount rate here. And I've got my terminal, there we go. This is my terminal growth rate. Terminal growth rate here, right? So that's 2. Let's do a data table, quick data table. And you do, what do we do? Where do we go? We go to data. Then we go to what if analysis. Then we go to table. We say row input cell. Row input cell is our IRR discount rate. So there you go. And terminal growth rate is our terminal growth rate here. Press OK. You have an answer. We have, okay, this is not good. Why is this happening? This is happening mainly because of one reason, if I'm right. Go to options, go to formula, say automatic. I turn this off because so prior to this work for the last couple of days, I've been working on a big model that had lots of calculation and just kill my laptop completely. So I had to turn this off. So turn it on and the numbers get updated. And now to give you a nice color-coded presentation, I go to home, conditional formatting, color scales, and there we go, color scales. So bigger is better and smaller is no, bigger is better. Bigger is better, yeah, bigger is better. So there you go, there's your range. There's your range of enterprise value for GEMS. Now, do you remember how much CVC paid? CVC plugged in about $1 billion at a $4 billion valuation. So what assumptions did CVC use? Where do you see 4 billion? See 4 billion here. I see it here. I see it here. I see it here. I see it here. And I see it here. So these are the values that CVC has used. These are the values CVC is used. Okay, what does this tell you? What does this show? What's the takeaway? What you're basically saying is CVC is used an IRR of somewhere between 8 to 10%, and they've used growth assumption, terminal growth assumptions of between. So I don't think it's going to be 6%. I think it's going to be here. It's about 2%. So most likely bet is that the IRR used by CVC is about 8% with a terminal growth about 2%, right? That's one part. But what you've just tested now, so far now, all you've done now is you just tested the valuation model. You haven't linked the sensitivity of the valuation model to assumptions that you've used. So this is your valuation model, right? This is the valuation model that you've tested. You haven't done anything here. Right? So for example, growth in school, growth in students, your mix, your expense levels, your thresholds, your revenue. What if these numbers change? So for example, if I go out and say baseline revenue, I say baseline expense. And right now I assume the baseline revenue of about 8.44, and I've used a baseline expense of 5.6. This is my math. So I'm going to link this to this number here. That's the most crucial part of your model, right? You got the student part, you got the growth part, but a large part of your model is what's the margin per student at your baseline rates, right? What if these numbers change? What happens then? So for example, if I go back to my model and I say forget the IRR and the discount rates, right? I want to test something else. I want to test how sensitive is the valuation to the fact that expenses go up and down. So I say, baseline revenue could be actually comes down, goes all the way down to $7,000 per student. So 7.2, 7.5, 7.7, 7.9, 8.1, 8.2, 8.4, 8.6, 8.8, and 9. That's my baseline revenue in terms of per student. And my expense go from say 5.2, so come down 5.4, 5.6, 5.8, 6, 6.2, and 6.3. So now this is my baseline rev per student, and this becomes my baseline expense per student. You're now testing. So this was testing the valuation model. Now I'm testing my actual business model, right? So select. What do? Data, what if analysis, go to table. Your row input cell is, where did it go? Is it above or below? I think it's below. Yeah, there we go. 8.4 column input cell is 5.6. Plug in the values. There you go. What do you think now? So home, conditional formatting, color scales, bigger is better. You're doing testing two parts. The first part that you tested is your valuation model, the valuation assumptions you've used, right? The second part that you're testing is your business model. And in the business model, what you focused on essentially is you're saying, what happens if the fee structure changes? Because that's core to the business, right? What happens if the fee structure changes? If the fee structure changes, again, what are our friends at CVC looking at? They're looking at this number, because their number is 4 billion valuation, right? So they're here, they're somewhere in this range. They're somewhere around here. All right, so two key points before I wrap up for the day. One is, when you test, you need to test both the valuation assumptions, which is this part, which is the IRR discount rate and the terminal growth rate, and the business model. You need to test both, not enough to test one. And then you can even do a combo of both, right? So for example, baseline revenue and your discount rate, how does that work? Baseline expense and your discount rate, how does that work? And that gives you a better sense of what the numbers look like, what valuation direction you're going on, right?